Good morning. We are getting on a boat, or actually we're on a boat this morning on the Sea of Galilee. So this is going to be really interesting. I'm not really sure exactly what's in store, but we're going on the Sea of Galilee. It's pretty cold, but not quite as bad as they said that it was going to be.
I thought it might be raining.
Right,
So
and
it's
it
not raining,
is
so
over
that's
that
good.
way, but hopefully we'll avoid it now. And yeah, we're going to see what we can see out here. This is where he said 60% of the Lord's teaching was done around the shores of this lake. So we're going to get a feel for what it was like here and what the apostles experienced. Let's take a look at the Sea of Galilee and what we have in store here today. So let's take a look.
After breakfast at the hotel, we walked the short distance to the pier behind the hotel. From there, we boarded a boat that would take us across the lake to the remains of the town of Capernaum. We were hoping it wouldn't rain, but it did. The rain didn't dampen our enthusiasm, but it did show us how quickly storms can come up on the Sea of Galilee, something the disciples of Jesus knew all too well. The Sea of Galilee, also known as Lake Gennesaret or the Sea of Tiberias, is the lowest freshwater lake in the world, being about 700 feet below sea level. The only lake that is lower is the Dead Sea, which, as you know, is saltwater. The Sea of Galilee is about 33 miles long and 13 miles wide and about 141 feet deep. Our guide told us that the Sea of Galilee supplies about 50 or 60% of the fresh water used in Israel. Its main source is the Jordan River, as well as some underground springs. It drains into the Dead Sea, but there is no outlet, and that is why the Dead Sea, like the Great Salt Lake, is saltwater. The crew stopped the boat in the middle of the lake so our educators could teach us about the events that occurred here. In the short time we were stopped, the wind pushed us back some 150 meters. Of course, we were able to easily regain that 150 meters once we turned the motor back on, but not before the wind and the rain picked up for real. By the time we disembarked, we were breaking out our rain gear and sharing umbrellas.
You may recall that Jesus was born in Bethlehem, raised in Nazareth, and then when he tried to teach there, they tried to kill him. So he came to Capernaum and lived here. We walked through the gates and headed over to what remains of two Jewish synagogues. The top one is called the White Synagogue, but it's built over the top of another synagogue that is possibly from the time of Jesus. Then a short distance away are the remains of a first-century home traditionally considered to be the house of Simon Peter. Whether these structures were or were not here when Jesus and his disciples were isn't really important. Just being in the town where he taught and performed miracles, seeing the countryside and the lake, gave us a chance to ponder those scriptural accounts. Seeing the land where the Savior taught gives new appreciation for all he did. A short walk from the synagogues is a quiet spot along the shoreline of the Sea of Galilee. There is very good evidence that this spot may be where Jesus told Simon to let down his net after fishing all night and catching nothing. You know the account. Simon Peter did as the Lord commanded and had so many fish in his net that it almost sank his boat. Then the Lord called Simon, Andrew, James, and John to follow him, and he would make them fishers of men. Whether it is or isn't the exact spot that event took place, like the synagogue, isn't really important. It's more important to just know that it happened. However, the spot is peaceful and isn't really hard to imagine that event happening right here.
From Capernaum, we drove about an hour to Caesarea Philippi, the headwaters of the Jordan River and the place of Peter's declaration and testimony. You may recall in Matthew 16, Jesus and the disciples came to the coast of Caesarea Philippi, and Jesus asks them who the people say he is. They gave their varied answers. Then Jesus asked, "But whom say ye that I am?" And Peter answered, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." There is incredible symbolism in this spot, not the least of which is the clear water flowing out from under the rock cliff, reminding us that he is the living water. Next was the traditional spot of the Beatitudes. It was an interesting stop with this lovely church as the centerpiece. It did give us a chance to ponder for a time the Lord's teachings in that great sermon. Our final stop of the day was Magdala, the town of Mary Magdalene. It is situated about 10 kilometers from Capernaum. Today it is called Migdal, with a population of about 2,000 people. In 2009, while building the Magdala Hotel, the remains of a first-century synagogue were uncovered. Israeli law requires construction to stop if antiquities are uncovered until they can be identified. The hotel did get finished, but not over top of the synagogue, and the archaeological dig uncovered what many believe to be one of only 7 first-century synagogues in the world. And again, while we don't know for certain if Jesus preached here, it is very likely that he did.
Also on the property is the Duke in Altum, sometimes known as the Magdala Church. According to Magdala.org, this center of worship is a place for all denominations. It consists of 6 chapels, but the boat chapel, the women's atrium, and the encounter chapel on the lower floor were especially meaningful to us. The boat chapel, overlooking the Sea of Galilee, brings to mind the many scriptural accounts of the Lord's teachings out on this beautiful lake. The women's atrium in the center of the main floor chapels consists of 4 columns. 3 columns are inscribed with the names of faithful women in the Bible, including Mary, the mother of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Martha and Mary of Bethany, and many more. The 4th column has no carved names. Instead, visiting women are invited to figuratively write their names on the column as modern women of Christ. We then headed to the lower floor chapel where we saw the exquisite mural called Encounter. This mural shows us the seconds before the woman with the issue of blood from Mark 5:25-34 touches the hem of his robe. To say the painting is moving is an understatement. How many of us would have the faith of this woman? It's interesting to note that the woman in this account is not named, making this all the more relatable to our lives as we strive to increase our faith. Copies of this painting are available from the Magdala Hotel Online Store, and I'll put the link in the description.
As the rainy, cold day came to a close, we climbed on the buses and headed for the Naf Ginosar Kibbutz Hotel. You can see our video about this kibbutz hotel here. We were tired but happy to have seen some of the places the Lord called home. Galilee is probably the area we love the most in Israel, and if we were to come back, we would stay here longer.
We hope you've enjoyed this look into some of the places that Jesus loved. Fortunately, we had one more day in the Galilee area, and we'll show you the events of that day next time. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and ring the bell to get notified.
And until next time, Restless friends, you take care.
Bye.